What is free reining?
Paint me a scene, city in color, the way that you see, the way you see it. Don't you wish that I could give you, I could give you everything. If you wanna run ahead, I'll meet you where the water meets the earth we cling to. If you wanna find the edge, I'll come too.
Here at the Frisian experience, what free reining means to us means allowing our horses to roam around all of this area freely, for them to pick and choose where they want to go. So they can choose to snooze in the middle of the barn, they can choose to graze around the edges of the barn, they can choose to go right up into the woodlands, they can choose even ground, uneven ground, and they absolutely adore it. The way I perceive it is offering them freedom of such a vast and diverse space for our horses. It better mimics the environment that they'd have access to out in the wild as herds, because these days we see a lot of people turning their horses out in little flat square paddocks, which, you know, we're very lucky that we have this land here for our horses to roam around. Not many people have this luxury in these flat little square paddocks are all they have access to, so they have to use what they've got. But for us, we are lucky enough to have access to this. As I was saying, with it linking back to it mimicking their environment in the wild, it provides them more stimulation and more enrichment, because there's varying areas of terrain, there's woodland areas, rocky areas, areas with different kind of species of grass. Species of grass, is that right? Who knows? Varieties of grass. So they can have also a more diverse range of nutrients and kind of forage what they need, because horses are master foragers. They're far better at that than we give them credit for. For example, sometimes Vibran, he appears up the woodland footpath. Woodland footpath behind me here. So Vibran will appear from this footpath with a really dirty little nose. And why is that? It's because he's been licking up all the mud to find the minerals that he feels that he needs. And his Renske has chosen to graze around the ram pen this morning. So she's found a good tasty bit of grass there. And in here we do have Hida and Xiaoqia, who are in the turnout this morning. So they're not free reining. Hida can, Xiaoqia doesn't. The reason why Hida and Xiaoqia are in the turnout is because Hida's just keeping Xiaoqia company. She's got a sore foot, so she couldn't go free rein anyway. But even if she didn't have a sore foot, she's not a character we'd let free rein at this stage, just because the horses we allow to go free rein are ones that we know we can trust completely. They're going to respect the area, they're going to respect people while they're free rein, they're not going to test the boundaries too much, and they wouldn't go anywhere that they perhaps shouldn't. So if they saw a boundary in front of them, they're not going to test that. Whereas horses like Xiaoqia, if they see a boundary in front of them, then she's likely to go, ooh, can I get through there? Ooh, yeah, I want to push through that, I want to push through that. And then they might end up escaping, and they need to remember their manners and respect. You know, just like if you had children, you'd want your children to be respectful and remember their manners, and it's the same with our horses. And if we allowed Xiaoqia free rein at this stage, she might start pushing not only the physical boundaries of where she can and can't go too much, but also the boundaries of her behaviour with people. And we need to keep reminding her that actually, you know, Xiaoqia, you need to remember to be polite and respectful of people as well. And if we were to allow her all of this freedom, she might kind of forget her manners a little bit. So there are certain characters that this wouldn't suit where they are currently in their lives and their training. Hannes as well, he can go free rein sometimes, but then other times he gets a bit too excited and he starts running around a little bit too much, which isn't the end of the world. But we don't want him trotting on stones, which sometimes he does. And also because we have Bear free rein, Bear obviously has the DSLD in his back legs. We can't have Bear running around too much, so that doesn't work. And Bear, even though he's only 8, or 9 now, don't quote me on that. He spent his whole life free rein because of his DSLD, and the fact that we can have free reiners now is amazing for him, really, because otherwise he'd only be able to go on a turnout. And he's one that can go free rein at such a young age because he's a very quiet, gentle persona, whereas his friend Ice, who he came with, who is also 8 or 9, we let him free rein once, and again that didn't work because he just started being a little bit silly. So it's just getting to know your horses, getting to know the characters, who does and doesn't work together, who is and isn't going to respect the boundaries both of people with their manners and the physical boundaries of the area they can and can't go. So here's Bear now, and going back to it being more of a natural space for them and allowing them to kind of tap into those herd instincts, you can see the gradual movement across to this area. So originally we saw Anya and Bear outside the hay hole and Renska outside the office, and Renska's moved across to here where obviously Hida and Xiaoqiu are, and then Bear's moved across to here. So it's almost like a little gradual herd movement. Anya has just done her own thing completely, and she's off grazing up by the static. Annie, she's more of a kind of an independent, almost not a loner, but she's a very independent persona, and she's quite happy just to go off and do her own thing regardless of where the others are. Whereas Veebs and Renska, they're definitely more kind of herd horses. I mean, obviously all horses are herd animals, but those two are ones that like company and they like that synchronicity. Not only does it benefit them from a nutritional perspective, because they've got a wider diversity of plants and grasses to forage through, and mentally because it provides more stimulation. And here we are coming up to the woods, which they also have access to. Also benefits them physically. Here's Annie behind me now, because as you can see by the ground in front of me, obviously with it being slightly uneven, the slope up here and then the slope that kind of continues up to the woodland. By coming on this uneven terrain, they're having to learn how to balance themselves and just be more aware of their own body, which is something they wouldn't necessarily learn, again, in a nice flat paddock. Because by going up and down, they're constantly having to think about where they're putting their feet, how they need to distribute their body weight, which is all helping them with their awareness, their proprioception, and how to manage their own body, because they're big, big horses. I always think that a lot of people don't give horses enough credit for how aware they are of how to manage their own body, because a lot of horse people would be mortified that we let our horses roam around across this uneven terrain, because their first thought would be, well, what if that horse injures themselves or gets stuck up here? Whereas the way we see it is that our horses are far smarter than we give them credit for, far, far, far smarter, and they know exactly how to navigate this terrain, exactly where to put their feet and exactly where they can and can't go. You know, they're aware of, okay, I can't go up there because that's too steep or I can't get down. They're aware of that. So if they take themselves up anywhere, it's very rare that they take themselves up somewhere that they can't get back down. It's like sometimes Anya, for example, she likes to go rock climbing a little bit, and sometimes we do look and go, ooh, Annie, was that the best move? But then we watch her come back down, and she does it very delicately, very slowly. And is she ever in danger? No, not at all, because she knows. And we need to learn to trust our horses more. Furthermore, because they're used to roaming around in this kind of ground, they know how to do it. Whereas if you have a horse that's only going on flat, even ground, they're not necessarily going to have the same knowledge or awareness for these kind of skills. And also, because we don't wrap our horses up in cotton wool, the way I see it too is that they're far less likely to get injured or do anything silly. It's, to me, when you see horses being a little bit silly or putting themselves in positions where they're going to get injured, it's horses that actually don't have access to any of this. So when they first come out there, they're like, ooh, what's this? You know, our horses, when we turn them out in the field, do they go crazy or insane? No, because it's normal to them. So they're just like, cool, I'm back in the field now. Whereas if you have a horse that lives in the stable for 23 hours a day, only goes out for one, that's when they go really excitable, because they're like, right up into the and I get to go out, woohoo! So because our horses have this all of the time, it's normal. And going back to those herd instincts and the foraging, this creates such a natural environment for them, because they're free to be grazers and move around, and then they can have a nap when they finished eating and they finish moving, and then they can go again and graze and select food. And it's just so natural for them. It keeps their body moving as well as their digestive system, because if you've heard Tracy reference, that is such an important thing, especially within the Friesian. So as well as being able to find the right nutrients with this kind of lifestyle, they're also able to have constant food going through their digestive system without it being too much, because they're having to move to go and find it. So they can't necessarily overeat, but they can still have a constant supply of food going through them, which our horses need. So the free reiners have access to all of this woodland up here, and this area down here, which kind of connects to the woodland. And then you can see there that little trail going up there and around there, that then leads them back to where the barn is. And then obviously this little area here, so we've got the arena in front of us, Annie there, and this track which takes you back to the barn. So here's Renska and Teddy, who at this earlier in the video you saw them in the front of the round pen. They basically came around the back of the round pen this way, and now it looks like they're kind of moving round to this side of the arena where there's a nice little grassy patch. Indeed they are. And going back to the natural life and moving around a lot, it'll allow them to clock up an awful lot of miles in the day, which for horses, being herd animals, is exactly what they need to do. So we've already discussed different personality types and why we don't have absolutely every single horse here, all 15 of them, going free rein, because there are some that it wouldn't necessarily be the best choice or decision for. But another question people might ask is, how do you let them loose and know that they're not going to do anything silly or push through the boundaries that we've set for them, as in the physical boundaries between here and the road, or they're not going to run around too much? And that is A, because as we've already talked about, we know our horses and we know which ones can and can't, and B, it's because we've cultivated an environment here that's nice and relaxed, nice and calm, where they can do this kind of freely and feel safe within themselves. Whereas if we were a yard that was quite stressy, quite intense, quite, this kind of environment, that would also reflect in the horses, and we wouldn't be able to have them doing all of this, because we'd have a load of stressy horses who would be like, well, what's going to happen next? So we've cultivated an environment where we can have this. You have to create the right kind of environment for that. And going back to different personalities, it's fascinating, because I remember the first couple of times we let Micah go free rein. And Micah, she's a little bit of a touchy character. She's quite sensitive in kind of every aspect of her being, and she likes to do the right thing, and she almost, like, in some ways she almost prefers to go out in the normal turnout, because she knows, right, those are the fences, this is where I can and can't go. So the first time we let her free rein, she was like, hang on a minute, I can go everywhere, I can go down here and over there, and is this right? I don't know if I like this. And she was almost quite confused, and it took her a little while to feel comfortable and safe being able to roam around in all of this space and realizing, I can go there, I can go here, oh, I quite like this now. And some characters like Annie, straight away they just go, cool, I can go wherever I want, yes. Whereas Micah was almost like, where are the boundaries, where are the rules? But she gradually got used to it. So as I said, every personality is different. But just to reiterate, we still do absolutely use the turnouts as well for either horses on rest or personalities it wouldn't suit. And also, even if we had, let's say, 7 horses that could go free rein, that's just a figure I plucked out the top of my head, necessarily have all 7 going free rein at once at the same time, because within that there might be a bit of an imbalance within herd dynamics. So for example, sometimes Annie and Yodel do go free reining together, but it's not something we have too often, because otherwise those two, they do have a little bit of a rivalry, and we don't want arguments starting or incidences that are going to upset the balance. So it has to be horses that when they are out free rein, we know that they're gonna get on well and not start arguments. So just to recap, we have horses to free rein because it keeps them happy, and it's a really beneficial, healthy lifestyle for them. As I've shared, it's not something we can have them all doing at this stage, but the rest of them, they still live out 24/7 and come up and down regularly. They just can't necessarily all have access to this area like Anya, Renska, Vibram and Hida can. Yolanda can also come free rein, Micah can, Doughton can as well. Hoytzer couldn't because he'd cause too much chaos within herd dynamics. Hey Ren! And that's the other benefit I failed to mention before in this video, is it's nice for them because they can have as much human interaction as they want as well. They can just come up to any of us throughout the day, any visitors we have, and just say hello and demand scratches. Going back to horses that can and can't, Hoytzer couldn't because he'd cause a little bit too much chaos within herd dynamics. If Hoytzer was going to go free rein, it could only really be him, Jabbers, and potentially Annie up here, or Yolanda. Everybody else would have to be out and about in the fields down the road, just because otherwise, with him being the dominant and a little bit confrontational character he is, it wouldn't work for him. Xiaoqia at this stage, we've already said, can't go free rein. Ice, not so much either. Uber, no, again, he'd just cause chaos because he'd just be after the girls too much. So that just gives you a brief overview of who can and who can't. And if there's anyone I haven't mentioned there, feel free to ask in the comments. And just before I go, the really fascinating thing for us has been that even though they have access to absolutely everywhere, we find in the mornings, like these guys are doing now, they tend to go off out and about doing their own thing, having a nice little grazing session. Speak of the devil, up there is Hoytzer actually, and that's the reason he lives up there. It's his castle really, because he can't go free rein. It allows him to be nice and close to the barn and watch all of the others. So it's the next best thing, and he does live it up there because it is his castle and he loves to survey his kingdom like he's doing now. Going back to what the interesting thing for us has been, even though they have all of this area, after they finish grazing for the morning, they still tend to come and stand in this area behind me, the barn, where we all are and where all the action's going on. Because to prove our point that we've always said, Friesians just love people. They love that human affection and they crave that connection. So once they forage for a little bit, they're like, well, I want cuddles now. I want to see what's going on. So they all often appear in the barn, down in the barn in the afternoon, and they just all snooze around there. And it's so lovely for us. And I think it also goes to show, going back to the environment that we've created, that even when they're not tied up at the tie-ups and they have choice to go anywhere else, it's the place they choose to be. So I know I just said I was ending this video. I lied. Because I just had a word with Tracy about it and the fact I was making it, and she raised a very good point that I failed to mention. And as important as it is allowing them this free reining space, on the flip side of that, it's also providing them the comfort they need as well. So areas to lie down and sleep in the night. So sometimes we leave the arena for them, open for them, and this morning both Annie and Bear were asleep in the arena. Other times we leave one of the turnouts open so that they can have a lie down in there. We're in the middle of mucking out at the moment, but some days we literally just leave one of the stable doors open. It's normally the big box, and allow them a stable to sleep. Occasionally, even the free reiners need a stable completely to themselves for the night, especially Veebs with his DSLD. Sometimes he needs a bit of a break from movement and roaming around, so he might either need to be shut on a turnout for the day or a stable in the night, just to give him a chance to recover and have more of a cushy surface underneath him. Or the older boys like Hida, he might need a stable for the night as well, just to give him a chance to completely rest. So like with everything we do here, it's just a balancing act and playing it by ear depending on what our horses tell us on the day. Because they do absolutely tell us. We can see it in themselves and their bodies. We can see if they're a bit tired or if Veebs' leg is a bit sore. So it's just going off whatever they need. But thank you for joining me in this video, and I hope you have more of an idea now in regards to the free reining, why we have it, how we have it, and the benefits it has to our horses. And already, Renska and Annie have come back down from the woodland and by the side of the arena, and they've decided to come and chill in the barn for a little bit.